Fortune, welcome to Live from Bed.
Thanks, Jade. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. So last night, I obviously knew we were doing this interview.
Yeah.
And I was in a public restroom stall. And I was thinking about you while I was going to the bathroom. And I was like, okay, so I was in the stall and like the lock like was sort of broken. So I was holding it like with my foot.
Been there.
Doing some acrobatic situation. And someone came in and they tried to open it. And it's a very vulnerable situation you're in, right? So my immediate reaction was, someone's in here, right? That's the thing I say when someone's coming to the restroom stall. But I was thinking to myself, I think that's very telling about a person. What's their go-to statement when they need to communicate to the other person that there's someone in the stall? What would you say?
I think I do the formal, like, occupied. Just get right to it. But
occupied is formal.
Or it's what you said, like
someone's in here is crazy.
Someone's in here. I don't think is that crazy.
Is it not?
No.
Like, I'm in here, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be right?
Well, you can't like tell them who exactly is in here.
Jade Iovine is in here.
Yeah.
But it's scary. Some people say some crazy shit.
You are squatting and have to put your hand up holding the door and all of a sudden it's moving and everything's going everywhere.
Yeah, it's very scary.
I'm glad you made it through.
Yeah, but I thought of you and I was like, I gotta ask Fortune what she says. I'm like, some people have some creative answers. Occupied. It's formal, it's classy, it's not communicating too much information.
It gets right to the point.
Yeah, it's mysterious too, which I like. So I love your name.
Thank you.
I've never met anyone named Fortune before.
There's a lot of people in my family with the last name. It came from a last name.
Oh, that's cool. I love that. But your grandmother gave you this name?
My grandmother wanted my mom to name me this. It was her mother's maiden name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I feel like it also is like this hopeful, like, you know what I mean? It's a big name to live up to.
For sure. And my grandmother was very adamant about it, which it was not her personality. She was kind of a go with the flow person, but my mom said she just kept the whole pregnancy just saying like, this is the name, this is the name. And my mom thought it was too big of a name.
I love that name. I love a powerful name. I feel like some people who have like more pedestrian names than Fortune, it's like they don't care about the first name as much. Like, but you realize like when you have a good name, it's an incredible thing.
Yeah, it's nice because it does help you stand out. I remember when I first started Groundlings, this theater out here in LA that a lot of sketch comedy performers went to. I had never done any comedy classes. No one knew who I was. And they did a game at the end of the first class where they said, you're in a circle, go around and say whose name you can remember.
Oh, okay. So not a fun fact, thank God.
And my name was the only one that everyone remembered. And I was like, oh, this is a cool name.
You could be like Madonna if you want. You could drop Feimster. You could
just like Madonna.
You really could. Like Fortune
Feimster's a mouthful anyway. So.
I like the double F. Like it's a vibe, but I feel like you could really just do the one name thing.
Yeah, maybe. You never know.
Like 100%. So you married your wife in 2020.
Yep.
So you married her in COVID. How did that work?
Yeah, right in the thick of it. And it was October of 2020.
Damn.
It's funny to think back now that we're okay, the urgency of it. But at the time, it felt very like we need to do this now.
Yeah.
We had been engaged for a couple of years. So we knew it was coming, but we kept prolonging getting married because neither of us are planners. And
same.
She kind of wanted like a really small thing. And I was like, yeah, but a big party would be fun. Then COVID hit and we're like, well, I guess that's not happening. And then the whole thing with the Supreme Court happened with Ruth Bader Ginsburg dying. And we kind of were like, whoa, are we not going to be able to get married at some point? And it did just kind of light a fire under us to be like, let's just do it. We're going to anyway. And this way it doesn't have to be a big thing. So she got her dream of having this very tiny wedding. We invited 5 friends. We rented a Airbnb in Malibu, so it was all outside.
Oh, amazing.
And everyone was like leading up to it was safe and but it was this like it meant a lot to everybody because it was like this one joyous moment in a very dark time. And then a year later, we got to do my thing where we had a big party.
Are you a big party kind of person? Do you like people?
I like big parties, but I don't like to plan it, you know? And so I've not had many big parties.
Because it requires you to
plan it. But we found a great place in Palm Springs and they were amazing. This restaurant down there, they took care of most of the stuff. And I can't even believe that we got it done knowing that we don't like to do that stuff. But it ended up being great because our families came, but there was not that pressure of a wedding. So everyone just got to have a good, fun weekend without the stress of a wedding.
Yeah, because it's like in theory, you're like, oh, everyone I love is going to be in the same place at one time, but then you get like taken over by like the wedding monsters and like or whatever spirits. You don't get to like actually enjoy the people.
Exactly, and I actually highly recommend it to people.
Yeah.
Have a ceremony with like family, like this small little thing, and then just do a big party and not have it all be one thing.
Totally.
I think it was pretty great.
Do you feel like you need to recharge after a big party? Or are you an extrovert more so in that way?
What would you call an extroverted introvert?
An ambivert, I think the kids are saying.
Like I do well in social situations. I can turn it on, but then I love to be at home by myself recharging.
I'm the exact same way.
Yeah.
I think it like confuses people because I'm like, oh, like I feel like I'm more of an introvert. First of all, I hate those words. Like it's just it drives me fucking crazy. You know, I'm okay socially, but so people are like, oh, you're extroverted, because I think people think extroverted means confident or like friendly, and it's like, no. I need 47 days to like recoup.
It's how you recharge. Yeah, and so I really love my downtime. I really love to be alone. Like Jackson and I are very good at just being the two of us. I don't have an assistant, never have. I don't have like an entourage, never have, don't want one. It's just not my thing.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
You know you married the right person when you feel like you're alone with that other person.
Exactly.
You know, like I love being alone.
Right?
I love it. I'm not like a movie theater dinner. I'm not a publicly alone person. I don't like to go out in the world alone.
Yeah, I mean that's hard. It's harder, you know. Sometimes my wife is with me and sometimes I'm on the road by myself.
Yeah.
And you know, eating a meal by yourself
you feel so sad. Don't you feel sad for yourself?
I don't feel bad for myself, but I can tell other people feel bad for me, and I'm like, I'm good, you guys. Like,
I, for some reason, like go immediately like to feeling so sorry for myself.
My trick is I just say, is there a seat at the bar?
Yeah.
That feels less weird.
And you can like talk to like the bartender or whomever, you know.
Whereas if you're at a table by yourself, everyone's looking at you like, what's wrong?
It does sound peaceful. Like I love eating by myself in my home. Like what's your favorite thing to do alone?
I really love to watch bad TV by myself. Jax always falls asleep, so I feel like I'm alone.
I'm
watching
that person in my relationship.
I like all the housewife shows. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh my god, I saw you on Watch What Happens Live.
Yeah, I love them all. I watch all that, and then I guess all Bravo, Vanderpump Rules, and now I've been watching Southern Charm.
People need to pray for us with this Vanderpump Rules announcement.
I know. Yeah,
it was such an important part of my life. Like I felt so sad.
I know, because it's weird. I don't think you can like do a new cast. I think you just have to have a new show.
I know. Like don't try to like shove new people down our throat. Because now it's so different. When people come even on Housewives now, like it's not like Teresa Giudice flipping the table anymore. It's not like now they're like pushing their product constantly.
I know. They know what comes with it, whereas those early seasons they were just being themselves, which was so fun to watch.
It was the best. Like,
and I miss some of those OGs. They've like phase some of them out, but I'm like, I like it. I don't want the new people.
And it's so crazy because like of course I was dying to like have some of them on my show, so I had like Luann and whatever.
The Countess.
It was an out of body experience. Like she is. Let me just say this: she is exactly who she is on TV.
Nice.
I don't know why I thought it was maybe an act or something, but I was like stuck. I was like, oh my god,
I could see that. Yeah,
it was crazy.
Hello, darling.
Like exactly. It was that times 100. I was just like, wow, I don't know why I expected you to be like this completely normal individual when you walked in, but
that's so funny.
It was really funny.
Yeah.
So you did a honeymoon in the Maldives.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Did you do that in 2020?
So yeah, that was in November 2020. I talk about it in my new Netflix special. Yeah, it was this cool opportunity that came up. Jackson always wanted to go to the Maldives, and this travel agent had reached out to us who had some connections, and it was like set up this truly amazing trip.
Yeah.
But I did not look into anything about the Maldives or know anything about it. So when we were on our way, I'm like, wait, it's illegal to be gay here? Uh-oh.
How did you find that out? You like looked it up?
Yeah, Jackson brought this, I don't know, it was research, or she just had like a pamphlet of things, and it is like a 18-hour flight or something, or no, maybe it was 24 hours, and I just was bored and started looking through it, and I was like, did you know this? It was totally fine. Like all the resorts are, I think it's, the main island you have to be more careful, but the resorts are all, you have to take a plane an hour to most of them.
Okay.
They're all very tourist friendly. Everyone's fine. But the undercurrent of my joke is if someone's having a bad day, technically it's illegal. They could arrest me. They could whatever. So, it's just kind of everyone just thinks it's, once we got marriage equality, like that's you guys are good, right? And I'm like, well, there are places I can get arrested.
100%.
I can go to jail for, life.
Right. I know. I love when you were describing, like, when you were at the front desk checking in, they're like 2 beds or one. And you're like, I don't know, this person's my cousin.
We were so nervous in Qatar. It was just a layover, but we spent the night there, and I was nervous. I mean, I was. Yeah,
it's scary. Like, did you feel like you got any weird looks, or like did anyone?
Again, like nothing happened, thankfully. I'm sure it's fine for people, but it's just kind of pointing out like what the reality is.
Completely.
But we try to be respectful of people's customs and countries, and we're not like, I'm like, you stand over there.
Don't touch me. Don't even look at me.
So it was too much to add into the story, but we went to Dubai as well. And leaving the country, they held my passport for a long time.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, what is happening? So, I mean, there were nerves for sure, in these places. And we were totally fine, had a great trip. And but it was like, when I started writing this hour, I'm like, well, that's kind of an interesting, twist
for
of like a gay couple going on their honeymoon to a place where it's illegal.
Yeah, because we think, like in America, I mean, first of all, our rights are being threatened all the time these days, but it's you don't think of that in in the States.
You get safe in your comfort zone.
And you think everywhere's like that. Like that it's 2024 everywhere.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's not. But I interviewed Gigi Gorgeous. I don't know if you know, but she was telling me that she went to Dubai and had a horrible situation. She like left right away because they like detained her.
Oh,
and
interesting.
It's sobering to realize.
Yeah, people were like, "Are you gonna go do stand up?" And I'm like, "I don't know that being on stage and talking about
in Dubai stand up." Like, I can't think of a worse place.
I think that's probably smart.
God bless Dubai, but I highly recommend not doing a comedy special there.
Yeah, so I'm like, I'm just gonna stay under the radar, and it was a cool city, very interesting place, and very clean, and But I was definitely on edge.
I would be absolutely on edge. You're like trying to relax. You're like, I can't. So when you did this 24-hour flight, do you have flight anxiety? Like,
thankfully, no. Because I am on a flight all the time. My last 2 tours were back to back. Each tour was a year and a half, 100 cities, 150 shows. And I started that first one in January 21. So it went pretty quick.
Damn.
And finished it, went right into season 1 of this show called Fubar. I had like 2 or 3 months at home, went right into this last tour, year and a half, finished that, season 2 of Fubar, filmed my special, and now I finished all of that in mid-September.
Okay, so you've been home since?
Yeah, but it's been a whirlwind of like promoting my special, and I have off in quotes till April.
I'm like, but here you are.
But it's all good stuff. I'm proud of this special, and I want people to watch it. And so
it's awesome.
This is just part of the deal of like wanting to spread the word, and I'll be in this time off writing my whole new hour. So I've still got to go to clubs and work it out.
So that's where you like test your material. And so you can see like what people gravitate toward. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't even like pretend with the audience. Because I don't really do clubs anymore. I'm doing these big theaters, which is awesome. But I still have to work the material out. So the club is the best part for that. So I say to the audience, this is working it out. I'm telling you guys stories, but it's a nice little peek behind the curtain. I feel like it's a very intimate setting of like, they're right here in front of me. I'm like, what do you think of that? Like I'm doing like crowd work and Q&As. It's just a different thing than the big presented stand-up show.
It's cool to have that opportunity. So, you don't use any of the material that they don't particularly like. Is there any show that you can remember maybe earlier in your career or even like recently that like rocked you because it didn't go as well as you had hoped?
Oh man, a lot of those early on rocks you because the idea of being up on a stage for an hour with a microphone and no one's laughing is horrifying. Those college shows early on were tough. I had an entire male hockey team come into a show of mine. This was, I want to say, 12 years ago. And I was doing a college. I want to say it was somewhere in Massachusetts. And like all these broy guys start walking into the room, and there's many of them, like 30. And so of course you notice this is not my regular crowd. And I'm like, what are they doing? And they all sat in the back, and I stopped the show and I was just like, you guys, I just have to ask, like, I don't seem like your normal person that you would watch comedy of. What are you guys doing here? And they said that they got in trouble. I don't know what they did. And the coach gave them a list of things as their punishment.
No, you're lying.
I swear. And that they could choose their punishment. I guess the flattering thing is that they chose me. I'm the least punishable thing, I guess. And I started laughing so hard. And I then spent the rest of the show like incorporating them into the act, and the rest of the crowd loved it, and they were just like, "Man,
that is insane! That's crazy!"
Yeah. Like, so that one stuck out for me always because I was like, I'm your punishment.
Yeah, like what the hell? I mean, that's insane. Like, I have so many questions.
Yeah,
like, who's that coach?
The coach was like, you guys need to go learn something about lesbians
to be punished.
You're gonna hear a female comic.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's really great because I feel like comedians, it is so tough. Like even when I'm going to comedy shows and stuff as an audience member, I always think about that before I enter. I'm like, I can't believe like I'm going somewhere where like this person's job is to like try to make me laugh. Like it can be so intimidating. You know,
it's not easy, but you know, I'm now, gosh, when did I start? 15 years into stand-up. So that helps, you know, like if you do something a lot, the hope is you get good at it and comfortable. So even in those tighter crowds, which I still have that, like not with my own crowd, they're pretty much like, let's go, super high energy, awesome positive vibes. I never worry about my theater shows. More like corporate gigs and stuff where it's like some of the crowd doesn't know who you are, or they're in a business setting and they don't want to be too wild in front of their boss, and so everyone's kind of like minding their P's and Q's. Those are like tougher.
To be there or whatever.
Yeah, those are tougher, but you just kind of learn to go with it and charge on. If no one's laughing, you just charge through those jokes.
No, totally. And I feel like doing all the shows that you mentioned, like even with this show, if I fuck up, I'm like, oh, I have to do another interview tomorrow. So it's like the more at bats you have, I feel like it's like you can't spend too much time like ruminating.
Yeah, and then you leave that show and your soul's dead for a minute. And you're just like, okay.
Yeah. And you have to like, you have like shame spirals for like 4 hours.
Shake it off.
Totally.
As Taylor Swift says.
Exactly. The prophet. Truly. So what's something that you miss about your life before you took off?
It was like a little simpler, you know, like I look back at those early Groundlings days of just like hanging out with friends and laughing, and even though we were broke, there like wasn't really a care in the world. You just do whatever you want. Now I feel like an adult, like I'm running a business, and I think younger comics haven't experienced that part of it yet, so they're kind of like, why are you so stressed, you know?
Right.
You're like, it is a business. I am running this thing, and so there's like decisions all day, every day, that you're having to make, and many plates spinning in the air. And, you know, sometimes that I can see my wife's life gets affected by that, and that like everything kind of has to revolve around this crazy career and tour schedule and stuff. So there's not the freedom in the same way we had in the early days.
Totally. Does she get veto power as far as like your material? Is she like, that's
Oh,
too
yeah.
intimate to share? Or like, are there things that are off limits?
Yeah, I mean, but she's been the executive producer in the last
Yeah, I
3
saw that.
specials, which is
Yeah.
cool because she's very involved. It drives me nuts when people like say, "What do you do?" Like,
Right.
like she's so involved in my career and a part of my team, and is making every decision. Early days, she toured with me all the
Wow.
time, sold my merch.
Wow.
Yeah.
I also feel like the "what do you do" question is
so
really
annoying,
rude.
right?
Because especially, goddamn it, for a podcaster, they
Yeah.
say, "What do you do?" You say a podcast. They're already so disappointed. They
Yeah.
already like hate you. And then they say, "What's your podcast about?"
Mm-hmm.
And you have to fucking explain to this like 57-year-old like what your it's like. I just feel like it's always
They
aggressive.
should get rid of that question. I mean, she was a kindergarten teacher for 13 years.
It's amazing.
I pulled her out of that world, but not on purpose, but
Yeah.
just she moved to LA for me, for us to not be long distance. So that's what pulled her out of that world.
Yeah.
And so I never want her to like, I can feel when people ask her that she doesn't know how to answer. I'm like, she has a million things. She has a
Right.
million things, but it doesn't have like a title to it,
Especially in LA, it's like a form of like sizing you up. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
like what can you do for me?
And
like
it's a very LA thing. But
Mhm.
yeah, she's amazing. She's like the quiet, not quiet with me, but with everybody
Yeah.
else. She's here making a lot of big decisions, and
Yeah.
even to the, helping with wardrobe and what's the stage. We were having a hard time figuring out the design for this last one.
It
And
looks beautiful, like
Oh,
with your
thank
pink suit
you.
and then the blue background. You did a great job.
Thank you. I wanted to do the pink suit. I thought I wanted something to pop. She's the one that was like, we were trying to do arches and it wasn't working.
Yeah.
And she was the one that was like, what about just a sparkly curtain, light
Perfect.
it, do a shiny floor. Why are we overthinking this?
Incredible.
Yeah.
So I feel like that "what do you do" question is also dangerous for comedians, because
Yeah.
then people are like, tell me a joke.
Oh my God.
Entertain me.
That's
Make me laugh.
Never say to a comedian, tell me a joke.
Right?
That's like our Achilles heel.
I would forget every word I've ever learned in my life.
If you told me to tell you like a knock-knock joke right now, I would have nothing.
Me neither.
My jokes are like 8-minute stories.
Right? Yeah, like about your entire life.
Yeah.
That's the thing about comedy and comedians. Like whenever I talk to comedians, I'm like, there is that pressure, right? To like entertain or be funny
Yeah.
or meet people's expectations. Do you feel like that's lessened as you've gotten older?
Well, I think people assume if you're a comedian that you're the most hilarious person, and that is not always the case. I mean, sometimes I'm so funny in real life, and sometimes I'm so boring.
Yeah.
The funniest people I know are not comedians.
Right.
The comedians are the ones who learn to write it into a story and retell it, and but they're not necessarily the funniest people I've ever met.
Right.
So yeah, it's an interesting concept of you just think everyone's a clown.
Yeah,
And
that's what
some
it
of
feels
the
like.
comedians I know are like so quiet, sitting in a corner.
No, totally.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't expect, and people are like, just think
Yeah.
that you're there to be a court jester or something.
Yeah, so I think for me, I don't feel that pressure to like make people laugh.
Yeah.
I'm just like, this is who I am,
hmm
and
Take it or leave it.
yeah, pretty much.
Totally.
Like I'm a little bit more like on version of myself maybe on stage, but I'm not much different off stage. Yeah.
What was your "I made it" moment?
When I bought my house, I got Chelsea lately. That was a big step for me because I had been in LA for 8 years, like not getting any traction. I had tested twice for SNL.
Wow.
Was just getting very close to cool things and not getting it. A lot of no's. And then I got her show and started making money, and it was like, I'm making what? Like that that never seemed possible to me. I had insurance all of a sudden.
Right. That's huge.
Yeah. And so at 2.5 years into there, I bought a house.
Wow.
And like a very reasonable, like nothing fancy, but mine. It was mine.
That's right.
And
That's
that
huge.
felt like huge to me because I had 2 roommates, so 3 of us living together for 10 years. And
How'd you like the roommate thing?
I mean, listen, in hindsight, it was fun at times, and then other times I was so happy to like have my own place.
Are you still friends with those people?
Yeah.
That's rare.
The one guy, Steve, who I lived with for like 8 years, was like a brother to me.
Oh, that's
so
nice.
he and I were kind of a unit, and we would always find a third. I don't talk to the third as much because they were always kind of rotating in and out. Some I do. I'll hear from a handful of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, he and I had maybe like 7 different people that, because it was over the course of 8 years.
Was it like Craigslist? You'd be like
sometimes, yeah.
Wow.
So you never knew. I felt a little bit better because him being a male, like I felt like there was a little protection with that. But mostly we lived with one guy, but a lot of times we were looking for another girl.
Roommate politics always fascinate me.
Yeah,
like it gets crazy in there.
It's crazy, but he and I were so lucky to have each other. We were like each other's like person.
Oh, it's so nice.
And that I have a lot of great memories with him. And then he got into a serious relationship, and they ended up moving to Chicago, and that was a bummer. So I had 2 years with other people, but yeah, I was so happy to just like have something of my own. I'd wanted that my whole life, like my safe place that I controlled, that there was peace in my house. It smelled good, you know, like I didn't have anyone being messy or creating chaos.
For those of us who love to be alone, it's like to have that sanctuary. In LA, like your house is important.
Yeah, it meant the world to me.
Yeah.
And then I was there before I met her for 3 years. And then she was there with me for a while.
Yeah, 3 years is just enough time for you to start to be like, okay, I could use someone else in this house. You know, like I hear my own thoughts.
It was great. We sold it 2 years ago just because it became very small for the two of us. It was totally fine.
It gets
with
crowded.
Me,
yeah.
But with basically no closet. So
that's
yeah. But that house will always hold a special place in my heart.
So that was like, it was 2010 when you got the call about Chelsea lately?
The beginning of 2011.
Okay, so so I read about your 2010 New Year's. I guess what do you call it? When it's like, I guess
going into 2011.
And you were like, I'm broke, I can't pay my bills, and like I want to just be open to whatever comes for me. It's very not LA of me. I am the anti-manifester. Like,
really?
I mean, I think maybe I've just done it and don't realize that I've done it. But like you'll go and like make a vision board, like you'll do the whole thing, which makes me think that maybe I should fucking do something like that.
I'm always like, why not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't require much to do it. It is a very LA thing, or seemingly an LA thing for people like, what do you want to manifest? But yeah, I had that moment of just like being really real with my friends of like, I'm broke. I don't have any prospects. I don't know what else to do. I'm working so hard. I mean, truly, like, they were so lovely, but I'm sure I bummed them out. It was New Year's Eve, like a nice dinner.
Yeah, like I'm just trying to fucking hear
but they turned it into this really fun moment of like just cheering and like, you know, you're gonna do this, and you're gonna do this, and then they said, yeah, you're gonna go to Australia, pretending to be Oprah, and then 3 weeks later, I got that Chelsea Lately call. Went through 2 rounds of meetings, got the job, and on the first day, he told me we'd be filming in Australia in May.
That's fucking crazy.
And that I'd be going, and it was like, it was one of those life moments of like, okay, I'm on the right path, because there is that part of you that's like, I wish SNL was the dream for so long. I grew up watching that show, and then you worry like, am I off the path? Is this mean I'm a lesser than comic? And then when the path shows you like, no, you're good. You're like, oh, it's just a different path.
Do you think that like New Year's or around that time was the closest you ever came to giving up the dream?
I knew I wasn't going to give up the dream, but it was the closest to like, I might have to go back to a real job. I was a journalist for 8 years, an entertainment journalist. That was my day job.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then at night I did all the comedy, but I had a really lovely couple of women who I worked for, and they were very supportive of me. And you know, some people early on were like, wait, you're doing what? And were very territorial about it and didn't like it. And they were like, there was no ego of like, oh, this is not the most important thing to you. They were just like, you're good at this job, but we also know this is your dream. And so they were, shout out Stacy. She was very instrumental in helping me survive
Yeah.
LA and pay my bills, while also pursuing this dream. But in 2010, the newspaper business was just folding left and right, and they lost a lot of newspapers from just that.
Right.
And she had to let me go. It wasn't, she didn't want to. She kind of hung on for a couple more years, but everything just kind of folded. So it forced me to leave the nest. And it was just a moment of like, I took that whole year to like, I'm not gonna do any other job at comedy, and then I was broke.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, I just figured I guess I'll have to go work at Starbucks or whatever. And I would have done whatever it took to keep going. But it was just a like, oh, this is hard
Right.
moment.
And especially like New Year's, you're like recounting the past year, like where
Yeah.
your life's at, where it's not, where you want it to be. How
Yeah.
old were you?
I was 30. And I was seeing like friends at home in North Carolina, like buying houses and starting families and having cool jobs and going on trips. And I'm here with my two roommates, in this little condo. And I'm just like, what am I doing? Yeah.
It's that 30 thing. I'm turning 31. And I'm like, a lot of my friends, especially in LA, where a lot of people want to be in entertainment or,
Yeah.
want to be anywhere but where they are,
Right.
honestly. That dream and that question to yourself is like, it's so hard to gauge on your own. If you have a hopeless hope, if you're like
Yeah.
not that talented, if you are that talented,
Yeah.
like if you should stop it, how much you should invest in your job that's not the job that you want, just
Yeah.
because that's like the security. It's
For sure.
scary.
Yeah, and I knew two things. I knew I loved it. So that was a big thing for me, was like, I love this. It makes me happy. And so this is what I want to do.
Right.
And that was a big thing to keep going. And then other people, I had really great teachers at the Groundlings and people in stand up who were encouraging me. Like, you're really funny. This is what you're supposed to be doing. So that helps be like, okay, I don't think all these people are blowing smoke up my butt. They have no reason to. I'm not successful. So I'm gonna take that as a sign to this is what I'm supposed to do to keep going.
It is scary. You're like, am I going to still be feeling this way at 40? At what, like you just don't know. I mean, fortunately, if you have people that are telling you that you're good and, helping you keep that spark alive. But for so many people, it's just such an isolating thing. And you're like, no, I'm going to make it. I promise one day. Like, and it's hard to maintain that hope.
Yeah, and I try to, especially with like, I have a handful of comics that open for me, and I try to, Chelsea did a huge thing for me. I don't have a TV show to like put someone on full time, but I try to, connect people that are needing opportunities and, give them opening work or introduce them to audiences. You try to help people like you got help too.
Yeah. No, I think paying it forward, is important. How old are you now? 42?
44.
44.
Ooh.
No, but people say that 40s is like an incredible decade.
Yeah. So far, all right.
But I feel like even in your special, like you have so leaned into this vulnerable, while still wickedly funny, but this vulnerable, more like relatable life story path. Did that come as a result of you like gaining confidence in this fourth decade of your life?
Maybe. I think with my special Sweet and Salty, it came out like a month before the world shut down. And I, at the time, did not know how to write an hour. I was just doing fragments of jokes. And the producers that I was working with, Wanda Sykes being one and Paige Hurwitz, they helped me kind of craft that hour and like what that looked like. And storytelling kind of became more prevalent through that experience. And I was like, oh, I really like this. I like this better than just sporadic joke telling.
It felt like the truth.
Yeah, I felt like I was being myself.
Right.
And because I knew them and they were friends of mine, I felt like I could just have like a real moment and they left it in the special where I talked about representation and making it and what that meant, what that looked like. And I think that opened that door to just be more heartfelt and like it doesn't have to all be jokey. You can just like talk to the audience like a real person for a minute. So yeah, I think people have allowed me to be silly, but also to be just a normal person. Because even though I've lived in LA for 21 years now, which seems crazy,
That is crazy.
I still have strong roots to North Carolina and visit my family often, and come from a working class family, and understand like the things everyone's going through, and I like talking about those more relatable things
Because you've
than
had so many of those like life experiences that people
yeah.
desperately need representation for.
Yeah, so I think that's where my comedy's kind of landed, is just like I'm just telling you guys about my life,
Yeah.
and in a real way, and I'm hoping that people can find parts of themselves in those stories.
100%. Like I, even as a straight woman, like
Yeah,
definitely I did.
that's what I want.
I
Yeah.
related to it so much. And it made me think, I was reading one of your interviews and you were saying like, when you come out to your family, right? It's like, I'm going to tell you that I'm not exactly who you may have thought I was, right? And I wonder, like, how do you feel about the concept of coming out? And like, because you're right, like you mentioned in that, like, straight people aren't like, here's who I'm sexually attracted
Yeah.
to. Like, you don't have to do that.
Right.
But then when I'm interviewing a gay person on this show, I'm always like, it comes up like, what was your coming out story? Because it is a scary thing. Do you think that's always going to be a part of a gay person's trajectory? You know what I mean? Is that always going to exist?
It might be better now. I don't know, because
Yeah.
so there's a lot more people coming out earlier on. So it's like it seems like more part of the culture than it was back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was scary because you're having to reveal this big thing, and it would be one thing if you're just saying to your family like, "Hey, by the way, I'm gay," and they're like, "Cool, high five." But so many people are entering that conversation not knowing if their parents are gonna accept them. I mean, it is truly the end of that relationship for way more people than
Totally.
people realize. And I think that's the thing a lot of straight people didn't understand. And I had straight people write me when they heard me talk about it being scary. One guy called into the radio show I do, and he got kind of choked up, and he was like, I never thought about how hard that is for someone, because you are truly worried the people that are supposed to love you the most are not going to anymore. And it clicked for him in a way it hadn't before. And I was like, whoa, I was just kind of telling my coming out story, not really thinking about the byproduct of that, sharing that. But yeah, I hope it gets easier where it's not even a second thought. Oh, by the way, like, this is my girlfriend or whatever.
Right.
And the parents are like, great, just
Totally.
like you would a boyfriend or whoever. I think there's still some time to go before that's the case. It is harder for people with a very religious background. They're taught in certain religions it's a sin, and some people hold so steadfast to that they cannot see beyond it.
Right.
So I hope that becomes something where they go, you know what, I know that was my belief, but I love you more than that.
100%. Yeah, I think you articulated that so well. Like that really resonates with me, that like, straight people don't have to do that. You don't have to have this conversation where you don't know if you're going to be loved on the other side.
Yeah.
Right? Where you have to come out and talk about your sexuality or like or who you're sexually attracted to and wait for a response, And I wonder for you, like you had no representation in your community growing up. Like now you say you look back and you're like, that person was definitely gay. And
see all these people now, I'm like, duh.
Yeah, 100%.
But I'm telling you, not one out person in my entire hometown.
So what was the first sign that maybe like that you felt internally like, oh, maybe I'm not straight? And then how did you have the confidence to know that like, oh, I need to come out because I'm for sure. Like if you had no representation, how did you not know that everyone didn't feel like that?
It took me moving away.
Yeah.
And I assume I would have discovered it in time. But I can look back now, and even then when I came out going, oh, duh, 1,000 ways over. I always was like too intense about certain friends, and just really worked up when they would go on dates and stuff.
Right.
And my mom was like, what is this? I'm like, I don't know. And just trying to get affection where I could, cuddle parties. I joked in one special I rubbed lotion on my friend's arms. But I just kind of went through life assuming I was not desirable to a man. And that does kind of, I'm glad I've overcome that.
Yeah.
Self-confidence wise, it is pretty destructive to your self-esteem.
For sure.
Growing up and not being the object of anyone's affection, that chips away at you and you think, God, what is wrong with me? And I didn't know gay people to see myself like, oh, that I see myself in that person. Oh, maybe I'm that. Like, I didn't even have that in front of me.
Right.
There was no YouTube. There was no Will and Grace.
Yeah.
And so it seems very naive now to be like, how did you not know? But I really didn't think about it. I wasn't over there at home going, am I gay?
And it wasn't talked about.
No one talked about it. The word gay wasn't even in the vernacular.
Wow.
Especially in this small town. Like, and no one was even like throwing around the words in a derogatory way.
Right.
It was not talked about at all. And so I went to college, and I was at a women's college, and you'd think, oh, here are the gay times are rolling now.
Yeah.
But everyone was straight.
Wow.
Everyone was looking for a husband.
That must have been so confusing.
It was very confusing. There was one out person, and she had a tough time and transferred. And I probably clocked that, going, it's, in the negative pile of like, this is a hard thing. It wasn't until I moved to LA where it just kind of, as it will when you're trying to suppress who you are, it starts bubbling up. You can't live like that forever, at least in a healthy way.
Right.
It will manifest in intensity, anger.
Yeah.
I've seen that a lot. The homophobia that you see rearing up. More times than not, that person's suppressing something. And I know that is
I agree with
such a like, oh, that person's probably gay. But there is something to that.
I
When
agree.
you see someone adamantly against it, you go, what's going on there? That is a thing. It got to the point where I was like, it's gay pride weekend. I'm just gonna drive down there. I just want to see. And like, I drove down there, and then I was like, get out of here, get out of here, get out of here. And then I watched the L Word, and I was like, holy cow, what is this? And I remember just seeing the cast being these out gay women and just having coffee together and everything, even though it was salacious at times, just seeing gay people be normal, have coffee, have friends, be happy. It did make such a huge difference for me. And that's when I say representation matters.
Absolutely.
Because for the first time, I'm seeing what it could look like to be in that world and be gay. And then it just eventually just was like, I'm gay, you know, where you can't hold it in anymore.
No, totally. And I feel like your whole life, you didn't even realize there was this whole other path, right? Like, you're just like, I don't fit down this path.
And you think something's wrong with you.
Something's wrong with you. I'm broken. And I think a lot of people mistake like coming out and they're like, oh, that's the beginning of freedom. Which it might be to some people. But I think the fear, it would be so scary to have this living internally for a minute. And then like any secret, anything, you know, that you open up about, you're like, oh, all of a sudden this lives outside of me.
Well, my life really changed the day I came out and really accepted that of me. And I think I came out, my memory's a little hazy, but I want to say I came out in LA to friends first. And then like 6 months later told my parents. I wanted to get more comfortable with it myself. Before I just threw that at them. Which helped, but my life changed in that I felt like this huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. Because before that time, I would worry a lot. I was a bit of a worrywart, and just felt like there was something missing about me. Felt like something was wrong with me. And when I came out, I remember feeling bliss for the first time in my life, just peace and happiness, and I exhaled for the first time.
Amazing.
And that has stayed with me since then. Even though I certainly have hard times, things you have to overcome, tragedies happen in life, just that internal peace from that day forward changed me.
Yeah, I know. I can imagine, because it's like, because there's something that you accepted about yourself in that moment, and a peace and a truth. It felt like the truth.
Yeah, I'm like, you can't take that away from me. Even with rights being threatened, and I know who I am, and that is so powerful for your own self-worth and self-esteem.
Would you say that before you came out, or maybe even that around New Year's 2010/11, what period of your life did you feel the most lost or disconnected from yourself?
Around that time, I felt, even though I had that piece of like, oh, now I know who I am, then the reality sets in of like, well, now you gotta learn how to date. I didn't get to do this when I was 8, in high school. I'm making the mistakes at 30 that you got to make at 16, 17, and I felt like such a failure of like, my job's not working out, I'm not able to meet somebody, and when I'm going on dates, I'm like, I don't know how to act. I'm like dork, and I have no confidence in meeting someone. It just felt like a sad, like, I just remember kind of feeling sad at that point of just like, isn't there more to all of this?
Right. No, totally.
And that's why even now, like, I was the perpetual single person for so long, even though I dated and eventually came into my own, especially that 30 to 35, I started dating a lot more and felt more confidence. But there were so many years that I was alone and single. So like, every time my Valentine's rolls up, I'm like, I know I'm married, but I'm telling you guys, I know what it's like to be sad on this day. I spent so many years of my life bummed out on days like this. So I feel you when you reach these like love holidays and it makes you feel like crap.
Completely. I think more people feel like, even the people that are with someone, they're feeling like disappointed sometimes or whatever. It's a weird holiday.
I still can't even believe sometimes been in a 10-year relationship. Only because I was so single for so long.
Was it something that you thought like, maybe I'll be single forever?
I truly did think like, I guess you can't have it all. I really thought that. I was like, I've been blessed to have work and be successful, so maybe that's it. And if that's it, that's more than a lot of people get. So I'll take that.
But then you met your wife at Pride, in a parking lot, right?
And at a gay Pride event.
That's crazy. Like, that is such an. So do you go to Pride still? Like,
sometimes it's just so.
That's a great place to meet somebody.
It is but I never thought you'd meet someone for a long-term situation. Usually it's where someone meets someone for a night.
Right. No, 100%.
But
is there casual sex, and like, do lesbians have casual?
Oh yeah.
So I feel like women, like, I historically have a hard time with casual sex.
Women in general normally have a harder time.
Like, I'm picking out wedding china. You know what I mean? Like, after we have
sex. It's not as prevalent as like in the gay men. That casual is what they live for. They love a casual situation, but women, it's harder for sure. So I did not expect that to turn into 10 years later.
Golly. Was that your first like long-term relationship?
Yeah, I had dated, like I said, a couple people that were like, we were together, like dating, but it was, I think maybe a year was the longest. And nothing like where you're talking about moving in or anything like that. But with Jax, it felt very real, very early.
Like, do you believe in that statement? Like, when you know, you know?
Yeah, I do now. I would have not said that back then. I would have been like, there's no way
You're like, I don't know anything. Like,
And she never felt like a stranger. That's because, people were like, was it love at first sight? And I was like, I don't know what that's supposed to look like, but I can tell you.
I think that's more of a myth.
Love at first sight. I was like, but I can tell you, she never felt like a stranger. So if that's what that is, yes.
I feel the same way. So like, my husband, I met him in college and I saw him, and he didn't give me the time of day, and like also had a girlfriend, and I was like, oh, that is the man for me. Like, absolutely, we're gonna get married. But I felt that same way. Like, he felt familiar.
Like, there was no games, and I was never like, oh, am I texting too much? If I say this, will it freak her out? If I'm there was none of that.
I really believe like you can't do anything wrong with the right person. You can't do anything right with the wrong person.
Exactly.
I really believe in that.
I believe in that too. And so, yeah, I mean, the only thing that was tricky is that she was living in Chicago. And so like a year into it, we were so exhausted, both of us, because I was on the road. She was meeting me on the road. And again, she was a kindergarten teacher. So early morning, she was so pooped. So we did kind of have this like, okay, we're either doing this or we're not, because this in between is like too hard. So there was this pressure of like her moving. I felt that like she was the one making this giant sacrifice. And I was like, what if I'm ruining this person's life? Like, please let this be like positive for her, you know, too.
Totally.
And you know, LA is tricky, even though she's been here now 9 years, which seems crazy. It's still hard, you know.
It's hard. If you're not from here, or like it's hard to make friends.
It's hard really to make friends when you're older, when you're in a relationship. So, you know, we're still kind of looking for our community. Whatever that is. We both have friends, and sometimes we feel like, where's our community, you know? And I get so involved in work that she's kind of left going, where is my community? In Chicago, she had such a community.
And you're like, I'm the reason why she moved here.
So,
it's hard. LA, like, you know, those of us who love to be alone, it's great. You can be alone a lot. But it's really hard to penetrate the like socials. It can be really lonely.
Yeah, and you have to like work at having friends. I told her that early on, like, if there's someone you want to hang out with, you have to be like, what are you doing Tuesday at 7? If you go, let's have coffee, you'll never have coffee.
You know how many people I've said that to?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how you know I'm really LA. So I'm like, oh, let's get together sometime. And then when I really mean it, no one believes me. You know?
You have to be like, what are you doing here at this time? Let's do it. You make a plan. It will never happen. And it's not for lack of, you know, not wanting to hang out with the person. You just get wrapped up in life and forget.
No, 100%. It's part of the culture. Is that like New York? People are like, oh, you want to hang out right now? LA, it's like people are so fragile. It's like you have to tell them in advance and blah.
And in Chicago, she could just walk into like a certain bar and know all these friends are going to be there. We don't have that place.
No,
that,
100%.
Like, that hangout where you can find the people if you want.
And there's also no coincidence. You're not like running into, I mean, you know, like you're running into people you don't want to run into, but you're not like, it's not like, oh, I'm at the bar down the street from the mall that you're at. It's like, you have to be so planned.
So even though like everything professionally is like where I've wanted it to go and I've accomplished these dreams that I've wanted to accomplish, I think moving into this next year, like the goal is balance. Where's the balance? Where's the like the community, the friendships, work, and this all need to come together a little bit more. I think
that's great. But you really have inspired me to manifest. I need your formula for New Year's, because evidently it's great.
It's not even that. I mean, it's so simple. We on New Year's Day we like saved magazines for last month. And we just individually look through them and look at pictures. You know, cut out words. Health. You know. Like
balance.
Balance, whatever. Like we both, when we were looking for a home, like, you know, finding a home, like peace, whatever the thing is, and we cut it out and we just tape it to a piece of paper. And when we're so not woo-woo people, and my wife is very not woo-woo. Which is so funny that she even
I'm doing it
does this. And then we
Period.
tell each other what it is. So then I like that, because I'll be like, oh, I didn't know that was something you were wanting.
Right.
So now it's good to know that.
I like that. You know what is going on my freaking mood board this year is the fact that you sang Goodbye Earl with the Chicks.
Yes. Isn't that wild?
Did you just die and go to heaven?
So I met Natalie Maines 7 years ago, I want to say. It was this comedy show for Comedy Central where you tell a stand-up tells a story and then you sing with the band in relating to that story. And it had been a live show for years in LA. And they hired this very cool director, Joel Gallen, who's directed tons of music. And so he was trying to actually put some of the singers with the comics when they filmed. And he's like, I shot something with the Chicks however many years ago. He goes, I might, could get Natalie. And I was a huge fan. I've been listening to them since I was like 17.
That's like bury me right now.
Yeah.
Like that's dream come true.
And I was always like tweeting at them, like, when are you guys getting back together? You know, like we need more songs.
Yes.
And they just were living their lives. And then she said yes. And I couldn't believe it. Knowing her now, I can't believe that she said yes. And she filmed this thing with me. We sang Goodbye Earl then together, but like no one saw the show. Like one season I think was done.
I mean, at least you got your moment.
So I got my moment, and we became friends. We hit it off right away, and she started inviting us over to like, you know, dinner or puzzle nights at her house. And over the course of 7 years, like created a real actual friendship, you know.
Wow.
And so I was with her. They were on this tour, and she had a couple days off and invited Jackson and I to come up to Duluth, Minnesota, to go searching for rocks. She's into rock hounding, it's called.
Okay.
And we were like, we don't know what that is, but sure, let's go. So we like hung out for a couple days, and somehow it came up like me singing with them on stage, and I was like, I mean, if you're asking, I'm not gonna turn that down. So their very last show in Nashville, I flew out there, and like 18,000 people came out and sang Goodbye Earl with her, and it was so out of body experience.
Oh, I can't even imagine. Did you chime in the chorus? Like, how'd you know like what to?
She and I switched off of the lyrics,
and you knew it all by heart.
I knew it all by heart, but when I get nervous, especially with singing, the lyrics go out the window. And she was laughing at me because I kept worrying I was going to forget the lyrics, so I was like writing them on my hand.
Oh my god, genius.
And she didn't tell me to like right before which verses she would be doing. But when I started singing, I realized that everyone on the front row was also singing every lyric, so I was like, I could just watch them and be fine. And yeah, it was just such a cool moment.
Why are we were like so getting interrupted this whole thing? I'm so sorry. Okay,
good.
Continue.
And then I got to know her awesome bandmates, Simile and Marty, and we all hung out a couple months ago. Someone had a karaoke thing, and I was like, started playing 90s female country artists, and I was like, let's sing something else on. They're like, no.
Oh my god.
And then as the night progressed, we finally started belting out some of their early songs, and I was just like, I can't believe I'm singing y'all's songs with you in a random living room.
That's like my ultimate dream. But you can really sing.
I can carry a tune. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to put out an album.
I'm waiting till you incorporate that in the next special.
Yeah. I mean, it's more of like I can be on key and I can kind of mimic people, but I don't have any desire to be a musician. But I got to sing with them. I got to sing with Alanis Morissette.
Forget it.
And she brought me out. I sang the first 2 verses of Ironic with her. And then the chorus, and then that made me like cry because I love her so much.
Me too.
And she seems like such a good person, and I like that her tour manager told me to sing it to her. So I did, and because I think she thought I'd be nervous.
Yeah.
But like Alana's just kind of like looks in your soul, and I was just like mesmerized. It like made me cry. So I've had these really neat moments with these incredible singers I admire so much. Because even though I'm not a musician, I love music.
Yeah.
I've listened to the artists, especially like them, for so long that I just have such admiration that to be on stage with them is like such a moment I'll never forget.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this with me.
Thanks for having me.
I'm sorry for all our interruptions,
It's
but this
all
was
good.
the best. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bye.